may not be suitable for all audiences.
Oh, I like it.
Howdy, boy, you got a good game going there?
Who the hell's that?
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Welcome to Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher, a professional artist and master educator, attempting to provide the best in art historical content. If you like the content, make sure you like, you share, you subscribe. You know, that's what Willie does. So do it.
I wish you would.
So here I am checking out Willie Nelson, one of the outlaws of country music. Another outlaw in the art world is Chris Burden. Today, we're going to check that out, as you know, because you clicked on the video. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. This outlaw of art, Chris Burden, was oftentimes called the Evel Knievel of art by some, but he was largely misunderstood. He was born in Boston but grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, as well as having some time in France and Italy during his upbringing. His parents were scientists, his dad an engineer, and his mom was a biologist. He would go on and study physics, architecture, and art at Paloma College in California before going on to get his MFA at the University of California, Irvine. He was really focused on becoming an architect until he began to realize that it took too long to really be able to have the autonomy to make decisions, so he decided to become an artist instead. And for his graduate thesis, he would lock himself in a locker, a 2x2x2 confinement for 5 days in 1971. Off topic, on topic, a lot of people ask what sculpture is. Well, it's something you can walk around, it's something three-dimensional. In some ways, it forces the viewer to be active. Just like a performance art, he saw his performances that he would later develop as living sculptures.
I feel that art is a free spot where you can do anything, and that's what's, I think, fascinating about art, is that it's really hard to define it. You know, and I think that's what attracted me to art in the first place, was that it was, in some sense, not understandable.
Having a space to showcase this type of art was very rare, so that's why he and some others decided to develop F-Space. For a $100 contribution, you could be guaranteed a space to show. It was a showcase of artists creating this type of work. He would eventually get to a point where he was creating what is known as Actionism, or what he called Actionism. This is where the body is the object and the subject of the art. Although some people perceive that it is not about violence. It's about a mental experience that he has, but also the mental experience that the audience has. Early in his career, he was largely supported by his first wife, Barbara, and this is also during the time that he would make his most known work called Shoot, where on November the 19th, 1971, he was to be grazed by a .22 caliber rifle from a range of 16 feet. However, it was a little bit more severe than just a graze, and this is where a lot of people's perceptions began to lead them to a path of violence and whatnot. In creating other works like Transfixed on April the 23rd, 1974, he would not really help his cause in explaining that this is not really about violence, where he was literally nailed through his hands to the roof of a Volkswagen Beetle with the accelerator on full throttle for 2 minutes and then brought back in. Once these works were made, they became mythologies. Side note, famed musician David Bowie, who once said, "Art was seriously the only thing I'd ever wanted to own," created a song in 1977 called Joe the Lion, which was inspired by Chris Burden's Transfixed on his Heroes album. Listen to the lyrics, they're all about Chris Burden.
Is bonus good? Bonus? Sure, it's great.
Yeah, everyone wants one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chris Burden would create lots of interesting actionism pieces, including 747, where he shot at a 747 jet taking off from LA International Airport with photos captured by Terry McDonnell, TV Hijack from February of 1972, and subsequently destroyed the film evidence of this TV hijack. The Confession from 1974, where he spoke to his wife about an affair that he was having with another artist, Alexis Smith. Doomed from 1975, where he laid underneath a 5x8 foot sheet of glass with a clock in a Chicago museum until he was disturbed by a security guard who offered him water, and then ended the performance by taking a hammer, smashing the glass and the clock.
In the mid-70s, I had already done about 70 performances, and I shifted from doing mostly performances, and I started making objects. From the 70s to the 80s was sort of a transition period where I was doing installations and making some objects, and also I did a few more performances, so it was a gradual shift. I think a lot of the things I make do come out of performance. I think they're performative in some sense. The piece at LACMA, Urban Lights, is performative. You know, when the lights go on at dusk, it's performative.
Performance art, that doesn't make it art. It only makes a thing that silly people go to see.
In 1978, he got his first teaching job at the San Francisco Art Institute, and then would move on fairly quickly to the University of California, Los Angeles, and he would stay at UCLA until 2005. Some of his work revolved around storytelling, like Big Job in 1977, where he would purchase this very large semi that he ended up purchasing in a weird sort of way, drove across the country, and it was very much a parallel to his destructive and unstable lifestyle.
That's an attention getter.
In his later years, Chris Burden would make more works that focused on installations. He would do things like Beam Drop from 1984, where he literally dropped beams from a crane that embedded into concrete, or Tale of Two Cities from 1982, that were about wars and social commentaries using toys, models, fantasy to create this sort of dynamic between the country and the city, using over 5,000 different toys, houseplants, trucked in sand, and more in order to tell that story. He would create Medusa's head about the world being taken over by trains, or Metropolis 2 that was created in 2011, which was very much influenced by his time in Los Angeles and was using his interest in kinetic sculpture, showing a modern city interpretation that took him over 4 years to build.
Architecture is my straight man, and I needed to push against to make my art.
You're 1,000% right, yes!
Chris Burden would pass after a battle with cancer in 2015. However, his legacy will definitely live on. He gave himself a bad reputation by creating artworks that pushed the limits of what art was. He loved the fact that art didn't have a definition, and he pushed the boundaries of that definition to suit the narrative that really fit with what he was trying to do, whether that was performances or installations or anything else in between.
There is a tradition for what I'm doing, and it is, you know, if you look back in our history, it's there. You know, if some of the people at the turn of the century were here now, they wouldn't be making paintings. They'd be doing art like I'm doing, or some people I respect are doing. Do you know what I'm saying? But people want to see that same format continued, which I don't think is really very realistic, because the people that we respect now in our history were at their times seem difficult and outrageous in pushing something, and that is basically the history of art. You know, is that it does push your head around a little.
We have an idea of what art is or what it should be, and sometimes what it is or what it should be don't really align when we walk into that museum space. So for the sake of Chris Burden, for the sake of the Art 101, when you walk into that museum space, have an open mind on what you're going to find. And if you find something that pushes the boundaries of your own personal definition of what art is or what you think it should be, maybe it's not that it doesn't fit, but your idea is a little bit too small. Reflect on that. Maybe that reflection will serve you well in those art spaces.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. You have yourself a good day.
Hasn't your doctor said to you, now, George, you
My
got
doctor's dead.